It's tied to payroll and therefore to jobs. And we know exactly who's getting the tax credits. In fact, we know so much that we have to the Film Commission actually has to pull a lottery to know who gets the tax credits. And we've done a bill, we're moving a bill this year that we call the clawback bill. If you take a tax credit to create jobs and you don't create it, then you've got to pay the state back in terms of a penalty. This tax credit is structured in a way that you don't get it until the work is done. You turn in your payroll records, and then you get it post-production. So we're very pleased to be able to support this bill. It's the tax credit that the labor movement supports because it has these policy principles, and it saves our members' jobs. We'd ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Further?
A question on that, Madam Chair, just briefly to Ms. Way, on the Labor Fed, on the amendments. You mentioned the review and what's the other thing? California wages. What about the single sales factor?
The first two amendments are two that we would support and are pleased to see them move out of this committee. On the mandatory single sales factor, quite frankly, two things. One is our interest is to keep work in California. If this helps keep work in California, we absolutely want to look at it. The second point to be made is the legislature has taken some policy positions on elective single sales and credit sharing among families. It seems as if it's a little bit uneven to try and apply it to this tax credit when it's still the sitting policy of the state to allow for the elective single sales factor. Having said that, we want to continue to work with the author, the committee chair, and the chair of appropriations, as well as the industry side and the consultants of this committee to make sure that this becomes operative. If we can do it where it's a mandatory election and we can still keep the work here and it provides us stability going forward for production to come, we would absolutely support it. But we think that it's complicated enough that it deserves the rich, robust discussion that we're going to have as this bill moves forward.
Very good. In support. In support.
Madam Chair and members, Barry Broad on behalf of the Teamsters. We're one of the main Hollywood unions representing drivers, location managers, animal trainers, assistant directors. Obviously, we've covered a lot of this. Let me speak to this issue of the single sales factor. Our union supports the mandatory single sales factor as a matter of state policy. I think we'd like to see it applicable here, but I think we'd also like to see it applicable generally. It doesn't. I don't think it advances the situation in terms of that argument very much to just apply it here and not make it a matter of policy to apply it to other tax write-offs and breaks or whatever you want to call them, tax credits, whatever, tax expenditures. There's a lot of ways to describe them. Because, yes, on balance, a mandatory single sales factor favors those companies that have payroll and capital investments in the state of California. And that's in our interest. And we support that. But I think we do have to be careful, and I think we have to be mindful that it's actually workable, for the taxpayers. And I think the point that was made earlier by the first witness on this matter, we need to be sensitive that we're, in the name of doing something that we support, wind up turning this thing into something that's just a mess. And so with that sensitivity, I think we're supportive in principle, but it has to be workable. So right. We urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Right. And I think the motion will be that the first two, the wages, the California wages and the task force to do the financial analysis is going to be adopted here in committee. And then the third issue, while you may support it in concept, we want to be careful and take a good look at it through appropriates. All right.
Madam Chair.
Madam
yes. Chair, may I ask a question on that?
Sure, absolutely. Senator LaMalfa.
Thank you. If a mandatory single sales amendment may be adopted, will this committee be willing to pull it back in to reconsider that?
We could. I have confidence in Senator Kehoe because she's right here and listening to all of this that she'll work it out with the author.
And Senator LaMalfa, I'd be concerned with timing given sort of the legislative calendar. If it's the committee's pleasure to move the bill forward, I will commit to continuing the conversations about the concepts of single sales factor as it applies to this bill.
It just could have great bearing on the how folks feel about the bill today versus later on.
I'm with you on that.
Okay.
All right. We have an 11 o'clock time set item. Right now, I just want you to identify yourself and your position on the bill.
Regina Render, Directors Guild of America, and we are in support.
John Acosta, Vice President, Professional Musicians Union, Local 47, and we are in support. Thank you.
Okay, you can use the microphone as well.
Jen Heater, Screen Actors Guild, we're in support.
Okay.
Ed Duffy, Teamsters Local 399, and we are in support as well.
Beverly Lewis, Placer Lake Tahoe Film Commission, and the chair of the Flick Film Liaisons in California statewide. We represent 43 film commissioners around the state, and we are in support of this bill.
Jerry Day, Film Commissioner of Tuolumne County, in support.
Lucy Stephens, Sacramento Film Commission, in support.
Ed Brown with IATSC Local 44, affiliated property craftspersons representing 6,000 motion picture and television workers, and I urge your support.
Junior, IATSC Local 871, representing approximately 1,750 accountants, script supervisors, production coordinators, and others, urging your support.
Peter Cazzaro with the Art Directors Guild of America with over 2,000 members, and I am deeply in support.
Okay.
Dominic Chiavari, President of Teamsters Local 70, Oakland, California, in support.
Okay.
Patrick Hay on behalf of the California State Council of Laborers and the thousands of workers we have in the film industry, in support.
Melissa Patak, in conjunction and association with the comments I previously made on behalf of the Motion Picture Association of America, we're in support of the bill.
David Bain with IATSC Local 600, the Cinematographers Guild, representing 4,500 members in the state of California, and we are in support.
All right. Further support? Opposition? Please come forward. Welcome.
Feeling a little lonely. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Jean Ross with the California Budget Project. And we do oppose this bill and have opposed similar subsidies such as this in the past. And I think the primary reason that I would urge you to vote no on this bill today is this credit does not need to be extended this year. You have several years before you. We are at a period of great uncertainty in terms of the state budget. I think as the budget that you all approved last week, we all hope that the economy improves and the revenues that you're assuming do come in. I think there will be a lot of keeping our fingers crossed over the next several months there, and it would be inappropriate to undertake an additional financial responsibility until we have a more clear picture of where the state's finances are going. And also, and I would thank the chair for your work on trying to encourage evaluation of tax credit programs such as this, and I think it would be inappropriate to extend this credit prior to a comprehensive and independent, and I would underscore the word independent, evaluation of the credit. And I think the discussion around the amendments in single sales factor also points to the need to take a comprehensive look and to look at how much of the activity in this industry in California is related to this credit, how much is attributed to the elective single sales factor measure that was enacted at the same period of time. And that's a very difficult type of economic analysis to undertake. I'd also encourage you to ensure that there is a dynamic analysis of the impact of this credit that takes into account the negative impact on programs that would otherwise receive funding through the state budget. I know you have a special order coming up shortly. I would encourage you to consider turning this program into a grant program. And again, I think a lot of the discussion around single sales factor really addresses the point that this is not a traditional tax credit. This is not a credit that a corporation or a sole proprietor would claim against the taxes that they pay on their earnings or profits in California. And it really is a direct subsidy because of the structure of the industry and the formation, and I think the staff analysis does an excellent job of talking about what makes this program unique, where you have an LLC or a partnership that comes together for a single production that pays out
all of the earnings to investors so that there are no profits against which corporation or personal income taxes would be paid. I think a grant program would really speak to how this functions. It isn't a tax credit in the way I think all of us typically think of a tax credit. It would give you, by majority vote, the ability to change and modify the program on an annual basis. And I think now, and again, this gets to the discussion around the importance of the single sales factor amendments, that once a tax credit is in place, it's extraordinarily difficult to make changes until it comes up for renewal. And with due deference, I think, to the author, it is critically important that those safeguards to the budget be put in place now if you are going to extend the credit, because once you do that, any change, no matter how minor or modest, will require a two-thirds vote. And I think that is why this is so particularly problematic. So I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further witnesses in opposition? Seeing none, questions from the committee. Senator LaMalfa.
I'm supportive of the bill in concept now, but I am concerned what may come later with the possible mandatory single sales. So I might hold tight here for a little while until the end of the committee, until I can speak with some other folks that might have opinions or thoughts on that. Do you have any more? Excuse me. On how strongly do you feel about the bill being with or without that provision?
I've got to tell you that I am committed to having the conversation with both chairs on that issue. I do, though, firmly believe that it is a matter of statewide policy on how we are going to elect to offer businesses the reporting and accounting advantages. I don't believe that we ought to attach it to this bill. As Ms. Way mentioned, there is a disparate sort of approach if we do it that way, but I do think that the conversation is one that needs to be had. I know that we do have vehicles that are trying to pull back that elective option that businesses have, and I don't like how we had to accept that in the first place. It was a matter of a budget compromise in large part. So I feel very firmly that the conversation needs to be had. I equally feel, though, that it should not be attached to a bill, but it's not to say, though, that my commitment here wouldn't be to continue the conversation, and I will have to live with the consequences if the bill were to move in the Appropriations Committee.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? All right. Is there a motion? It would be, is there a motion? All right. It is do pass as amended. The two amendments that you've agreed to take involving wages and the analysis, and commitment to discuss seriously the third mandatory issue, the single sales factor issue in approps.
Very good. And let me just again express my gratitude, Madam Chair, to you and your staff for all of the work and the rigor, honestly, that you're putting on this legislation. It's important legislation. I think through the testimony and anecdotally we understand how much of a value this means to California, but I well understand the concerns that the committee has and the rigor that a bill like this deserves, and the points on single sales factor are well noted, and I look forward to having the conversations with both of the chairs at a future date.
All right.
Urge and I vote.
Thank you. It is due pass as amended to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff. Desaulnier. Fuller. Hancock. Hernandez. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa. Liu.
2-0. It needs 5 votes to emerge. We'll wait for the when the rest of the committee is here. We'll have another vote.
Thank you, Senators.
All right. We are now moving to item number 1, which is the Speaker's Bill, John Perez, AB 781. I would like, we'll take a minute to clear out those who are here for the film credit and let those who are here for Vernon or against come forward. Okay, just a clarification once again on how we're going to, I know that there are a lot of people here, so what we're going to do, Mr. Speaker, with your agreement, we'll have a limited amount of time. We talked about 10 minutes, of course not including you, the author, ever. 10 minutes for those in favor, 10 minutes for those opposed, and then identification only for the others, and then open to questions. So let me first start, Mr. Speaker. There is an amendment that you are going to discuss first, I believe. Let's just get that out of the way. In comment 4, there was an amendment that had to do with LAFCO being able to add terms and conditions. That, I believe, is...
You know, Madam Chair, we've recently taken amendments which we believe speak to that concern. Provides that nothing shall affect the authority of the Local Agency Formation Commission to act with respect to the district pursuant to the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000. I believe this amendment satisfactorily addresses the concerns, but I'm always willing to continue working with the committee to satisfy the issue to your satisfaction.
Let's have more discussion on that in a moment when I get a chance to look back and compare. But go ahead. I understand your willingness to do this, and let's just check the language.
Great.
Okay. All right. Yes, please begin.
Madam Chair, Senator and Senators in the halls, I'm sure. I'm pleased to present AB 781, which is a companion measure to my AB 46 that was considered and approved by this committee 2 weeks ago. Again, I'd like to begin by noting that the committee analysis recommended an amendment that allows local officials, property owners, and residents to apply to the LAFCO and ask for additional terms and conditions which LAFCO could adopt, provided that they further and don't hinder the goals of AB 46 and 781. I've recently taken amendments which already speak to this concern, but I'm willing to continue working with the committee to their satisfaction in this matter.
Then we're fine.
At our prior hearing, we had a very spirited and comprehensive discussion about AB 46, which creates a pathway to disincorporate any city with a population of fewer than 150 residents. Much of our discussion centered on the deep and pervasive municipal corruption that stems from the lack of an independent electorate. However, once disincorporation has occurred, there's a second issue, which relates to the establishment of a successor government and needs to be protective of the businesses and jobs during and long after that transition. AB 781 addresses these issues. Throughout this process, I've listened to concerns of business and labor, publicly and privately, to ensure that workers and businesses are held harmless by disincorporation. Throughout these discussions and from many conversations with other stakeholders, there are 5 primary issues that they've identified as crucial to maintaining a vibrant business climate. Those issues are: 1, maintaining low utility rates for electricity; 2, maintaining zoning and land use designations; 3, ensuring business taxes and fees remain low; 4, ensuring the existing business licensing fee structure remains in place; and 5, ensuring that any successor government provide the same level of services to the businesses, workers, and handful of residents in that city. AB 781 comprehensively addresses all 5 of these issues. This bill maintains and protects existing land use and zoning designations for a period of 10 years. This bill maintains the existing business taxes and fees in Vernon for a period of 5 years, including the utility user fees. The UUT would not be levied unless a uniform vote of the affected territory approved the levying of the UUT. This bill mandates that the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors create an expedited permitting process that's comparable to the structure that existed in the disincorporated city. And most importantly, for many of the businesses, AB 781 provides a clear and transparent mechanism to ensure that utility rates remain low. Now, this is a particularly important point. Despite claims from Vernon that disincorporation would lead to higher electrical rates, Vernon City Council recently approved a 16% increase, with 5% increases every year thereafter for the next several years. The reason for these increases is because the city has artificially suppressed power rates for years. Over many years, the enormous load of bond debt that the city has been carrying over $520 million, force Vernon to raise electrical rates independent of consideration of AB 46. AB 781 prohibits increases in existing electricity rates unless required by existing bond covenants or contracts, and allows for rate increases only after a thorough and exhaustive process that determines there is a clear and compelling need for higher utility rates. In short, these provisions directly speak to each and every issue that's been raised about the impact of disincorporation on businesses and jobs. Now, the second component of AB 781 addresses the question of a successor government once the city is disincorporated. AB 781 will eliminate the current city council and in its place establish a community service district that will continue to provide the high quality of services to which the residents, businesses, and workers are accustomed. The board of directors of the district will be the County Board of Supervisors. As you heard from Sheriff Baca 2 weeks ago at the last hearing, the police force in Vernon will be integrated into the LA County Sheriff's Department. The action will at a minimum preserve the existing level of police protection while adding a greater level of protection for the surrounding communities. All city departments and their employees that provide fire protection, water, telecommunications, gas, or electric utility service, or maintain streets or roads will be transferred to the district where for the first time they will enjoy civil service protections. All other departments and employees will be transferred to the county. To ensure integrity of local decision-making, AB 781 establishes 2 advisory bodies, both of which are comprised of residents and business and labor representatives who live or work in the disincorporated city. One is the Area Planning Commission, which will be charged with making recommendations on land use and zoning decisions. The other is the Municipal Advisory Council, which will be responsible for making recommendations on issues pertaining to the district. AB 781 provides for a smooth transition to a real democratic governance structure. Under AB 781, businesses and workers will enjoy concrete protections in the law and have an actual formal voice in governance. The residents of the district will be part of the independent electorate of the county governed by a democratically elected Board of Supervisors. This part is critical. There have been no suggested reforms to the City of Vernon that can establish a truly independent electorate. I believe that making the city part of the electorate of the unincorporated territory of the county is the only tool at the legislature's disposal. Nevertheless, I've not wavered from working with stakeholders on developing ways to address their issues, but I remain convinced that disincorporation is the only way to achieve a truly independent electorate, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
All right. Further witnesses in support? Yes, Senator.
Just before we bring up the folks, can we get a little more clarification on the proposed amendment having to do with LAFCO?
Yes.
What's the intent there?
The committee may wish to consider an amendment that allows local officials, property owners, and residents to apply to the LAFCO in LA County and ask for additional conditions. What the Speaker has indicated is that on page 6, item 4, which was a recent amend, that in his view may have accomplished that goal. Our staff is a little bit concerned, not concerned.
Page 7, item 4?
Page
6, item 4.
On the bill. Okay,
yes.
Thank
on
you.
The bill.
Sorry, I thought we were on the email.
So there has been an exchange with staff of more detailed language, which is, I am certain the Speaker will not have any problem with. It just reinforces what you said.
Absolutely.
But there doesn't seem to have been.
I am happy to continue working with your staff to get the clarification that the committee needs to flesh out the item.
Why don't we give this back to you while we're going through all the testimony? Okay, so we'll clarify that, and I'm sure it will be.
And then in the analysis, if I can ask, in the comments section, there's a question as to whether the committee should consider if the county town created by AB 781 is a substitute for city government. Is that... what's the difference between the county town idea and the service district? if I can ask the staff. Thank you.
Senator Kehoe, the notion of county town is something that practitioners have used as a term for 30 or 40 years. It's very similar to what's in the Speaker's bill. It's the establishment of some sort of special district that is a service entity, in this case a community services district, to deliver public facilities.
So the county town is completely consistent with the community service district?
Right. It's
okay.
It's a concept that blends together the CSD.
I didn't know if we had a horse of a different color coming.
No.
So. All right. So we'll just deal with the service district then. I can understand that. Thanks.
And if I may, Madam Chair?
Sure.
I think the committee staff accurately discusses that and the importance of both the Area Planning Commission and the MAC in being part of that governance structure. And I think the staff analysis really does flesh that out well.
Thank you. Good.
All right. Further questions of the speaker before we go to witnesses in support? All right. Witnesses in support.
My name is Michael Colatuno.
Okay.
I'm a local government lawyer.
Yes, you are.
I've represented cities, counties, and special districts for about 20 years. And I'm here to speak on some of the technical legal issues about the problem you're trying to solve. The fundamental problem is that Vernon can't work as a democracy because there are no people there who are meaningfully independent of the city. So the feedback loop from the grassroots to the council is broken, and the feedback loop works in the other direction. As I acknowledged when I spoke to you 2 weeks ago, the real stakeholders in Vernon are the landowners, the business owners, and the employees. And the question is, how do we empower those stakeholders to govern themselves? We have a hurdle to overcome in that the Equal Protection Clause of the federal Constitution imposes a one-person, one-vote requirement, allowing only registered voters to elect those who govern them in multi-purpose agencies. Irrigation districts aside, where landowner voting is allowed, a government with a police force has to be controlled by registered voters. So the registered voters that make sense are the registered voters of the unincorporated county. So how do we give those local stakeholders who aren't registered voters of Vernon, because essentially nobody lives there, a voice? This bill, I think, does a very artful and constitutional job of doing that by creating a community service district governed by the County Board of Supervisors, but requiring the board to consult with advisory bodies on which those landowners, business owners, and employees can sit, the Area Planning Commission and the Municipal Advisory Commission. I think this is an elegant solution to the constitutional challenge of creating decent government for this community. The bill also provides, as the speaker detailed, express protection for those issues that we now know about. Government, like the world that we govern, is a dynamic place, and we know there will be things that surface that we can't foresee now. And for that purpose, we've worked with your staff to establish language to allow LAFCO, our existing process, to deal with those changes as they arise. So there's room for LAFCO not only to address concerns we don't think of today, but to address changes in Vernon over the 10-year period that this bill can foresee. And for that, those reasons, Madam Chairman and members of the committee, I would recommend this bill to your committee.
All right, thank you. Further witnesses in support? Come forward. Well.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, Senators, Terry Brennan on behalf of SEIU California. This bill is a necessary piece to implement AB 46 and deal with the Vernon issue, and we're in strong support. Thank you.
In support?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Lieutenant Wayne Billowit on behalf of Los Angeles County Sheriff Lee Bach. We just want to reiterate our fact that we were going to be working very closely with the Speaker's office and with the Vernon Police Department as this bill moves along to ensure a public safety orderly transition. Thank you.
All right. Further support? Come forward.
Madam Chair, Senators Alan Fernandez on behalf of Los Angeles County. I'm actually here to say that we currently do not have a position, so we're in that in-between position, but we are working very closely with the Speaker to ensure as smooth the transition as possible. Thank you.
All right. Further support? Do we have anyone, sergeants outside? No. All right. Anyone wish to speak in support of the bill? All right. Then we will move to those who are in opposition. Please come forward. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, or good morning. My name is Gene Urban. I represent the City of Vernon. I'm only going to say a few remarks, and I'm going to turn it over to Mark Whitworth, the Chief Administrative Officer and Fire Chief of the City, who will introduce a large number of business owners and employees who can testify about the deficiencies of 781. Let me just say briefly, the Speaker identified 5 characteristics of cityhood or municipality: utility rates, provision of service, land use, taxes, the fee structure, and the level of services. I just wanted, for the record, we strongly contest the assertion that this bill meets any of the needs. I can talk about page and line number if necessary. I can talk about the legion of constitutional problems and the legion of legal problems. These issues have not been adequately addressed. There are weaknesses, deficiencies, and omissions. But don't rely on my assertions. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who will then bring up the businesses who operate there, the employees who work there, and a couple of the residences who live there, who will tell you 781 does not recreate the city that AB 46 illegally disincorporates.
Okay,
Mark.
Welcome.
Madam Chair and members, thank you for giving us this venue and hearing this issue. I'm Mark Whitworth, City Administrator and Fire Chief to the City of Vernon. When I assumed the position of City Administrator 10 months ago, our city's elected leadership assured me that they would stand behind me in pursuit of my municipal reform. For 10 months, I have moved aggressively to institute a series of reforms to move Vernon forward on a new path of good governance. I commissioned compensation surveys, term limits studies, and comprehensive reviews of contracting best practices. The result of these efforts has been a significant change in city law that has Vernon showing the way toward municipal reform for our sister cities in southeast Los Angeles County. Madam Chair, we ask you and your colleagues to allow us to continue the work we've started. The 1,800 businesses, 55,000 jobs, and all the workers that are in Vernon have a lot at stake in the outcome of today's legislative deliberation. The proposed Community Services District will only create chaos where there is none today. Businesses will leave, jobs will be lost. The economy of southeast Los Angeles County will be at risk with this proposal to hand over the operation of an entire city to a special district. I ask you to vote no on AB 781. Thank you.
Okay. In opposition?
Madam Chair and members, Barry Broad on behalf of the Teamsters, United Food and Commercial Workers, and the Machinists. We're just fundamentally opposed to a process that begins with disincorporation. We believe that if we're, and have delivered to the Speaker and to this committee, a proposal that would involve disincorporation as a final result upon the failure of the city to meet standards, uniform standards, and it would apply to any city in the state that does not reform in accordance with a judicially approved reform. I will only say one thing about this, and I'll leave you with this. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. It guarantees a democratic that democratic elections, a democratic electorate needs to happen in any place in the United States. It applies to local government, it applies to state government, it applies to federal elections. In all this time, where there was this colossal failure of democracy, nobody managed to file a Voting Rights Act case. Nobody. In which the allegation is that there is no free electorate in a place in the United States of America, when the federal judiciary and the U.S. Department of Justice has plenary authority to manage the electoral process, to reform the electoral process, to do whatever it is necessary to guarantee democracy in any jurisdiction anywhere in the United States of America, and that the only solution, instead of the solution created by the U.S. Congress with a 50-year track record of restoring democracy in far more difficult circumstances than Vernon, that no one has taken that opportunity, and instead of trying to create and reform the democratic process, the only solution is disincorporation. It just doesn't ring true. So we urge a no vote. Thank you.
In opposition? We have about 5 minutes left, so you should time yourself.
Okay. Madam Chair, members, my name is Greg Longstreet. I'm the president and CEO of Farmer John Foods. I'm also the current chairman of the board of the Vernon Chamber of Commerce. Farmer John produces over 2,000 food products. We're a local company based in California. We like being in California. We've been here since 1931. We're the largest employer in the city of Vernon. Many of these jobs are good-paying union jobs. We have a parent company, Hormel Foods Corporation. They operate 41 plants across the country. They evaluate these plants based on the business environment and the cost of doing business. If these bills pass and Vernon is disincorporated, our company will be forced to make tough decisions. I do not want to have to consider moving our production out of the state of California where we've been for so long, so successfully. Both AB 46 and 781 have created a cloud of uncertainty in the city. They've made it very tough on business. They've already stopped our progress. A lot of the damage has already been done. This has been in front of us since December. Expansion projects have stopped. We have stopped trying to hire and grow several businesses in Vernon. The leases are expiring. Companies are not re-upping their leases. Companies are leaving the city as a result of these bills. Things have been put on hold. We've also given many of our competitors from out of state an advantage in many of the categories and businesses we compete in. So I want to stress that the damage has already been done and will only get worse the longer this drags out. If 781 passes, every company in Vernon faces the same pressures. Jobs will be lost. Plants will be closed. Companies will leave the state. That's a fact. These are not hollow threats. These are just the real consequences of these bills. The analysis on 781 proves that there's many loopholes in 781. In many ways, it's our worst nightmare as businesses. We lose the essential services that have drawn us to the city and kept us in the city for so long. We also face supervision by the LA County Board of Supervisors. I don't understand why this is being pushed through now. And I want to also stress that the business community is separate from the actual city itself, and we have taken an active role in our community. No one has more to benefit from reform than we do. We have worked closely and really pushed the city to really reinvent itself, change, and reform itself, and it's proved successful. In the last 6 months, many landmark changes have been made to the city's proclamation and its charter, the charter amendments that call for term limits, pay decreases, compensation caps, this housing authority, which will get to an independent electorate. These are major changes for us, and we're just asking for time. Why can't we, in the midst of this economy, with all the challenges we're all facing, why can't we have time to reform ourselves and run this like a best-in-class city? The city works. The city will not work if it's disincorporated. I respectfully ask that you vote this bill down, do not pass this bill, and do not risk so many important jobs in California.
All right. In opposition?
Senator, my name is Matt Wenzel. I'm with AmeriPride Uniform Services. We outfit many of the businesses within Vernon, and my concern is solely about jobs. And I've spoken to the Speaker's office, and I'm here to speak to the senators as well. I've had to face people to lay them off. And this is real, and this does cost jobs. AB 781 further creates more uncertainty, and business and uncertainty do not go together. And what happens, and I'll reiterate what Greg has said, is that will create a cloud of every money just stops. And when that happens, the door's open to who knows what comes next. But I know that as my customers disappear, jobs disappear, and I've got to face people to do that, and that's very concerning to me. And I urge you to vote no.
All right. In opposition.
My name is Stan Stoss. I'm an assistant business manager with IBW Local 47. Changing my remarks a little bit here. When a foundation is not built properly, the entire structure has to be shaky. I was on the ad hoc rate committee that approved the rate increases at the city of Vernon. The biggest driver in those rate increases, and it should be something that's familiar to all of you, was Senate Bill 32, which is the Green Initiative, which every utility after every utility is having rate increases. So the fact that Vernon did it is absolutely consistent with what's happening every place else, and Vernon's rates are still 20 to 30% less expensive than the surrounding area. I'm proud to be part of a coalition of labor, union, and non-union companies, League of Cities, State Federation of Labor, LA County Federation, all of whom are opposing this bill. And we all come at it from different perspectives, but we all come to the same conclusion. This is a bad bill. The analogy that comes to mind, if a physician sees a patient with a disease, the solution isn't to kill the patient. The solution is to cure the disease. I ask that this legislature not become the Dr. Kevorkian of legislatures. Thank you.
Okay, we have about a minute left, so it's probably better that you just identify yourselves unless you want to use up the minute.
Madam Chair and Member Scott Wesh on behalf of the State Association of Electrical Workers, we appreciate the intent behind this bill and the Speaker trying to address the concerns that have been raised. We unfortunately still believe that there's a better model of having a receiver or a monitor, and that disincorporation be the last step in that process to give time to the city to meet the benchmarks that this legislature would set before it. So we would urge a no vote. Thank you.
All right, in opposition?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Angie Way on behalf of the California Labor Federation, also regretfully here in opposition. We have submitted the proposal, the labor alternative proposal, to this committee. We do recognize that 781 is the Speaker's attempt to try and bring stability and keep jobs in Vernon, and while we do appreciate that attempt, and right now we've turned in an alternative proposal that we look forward to ongoing discussions with the Speaker and his staff to see if there's somewhere that we can go to bring stability and keep the jobs in Vernon. Thank you.
Okay, ID only, I think. Got about 50 seconds.
Okay, my name is Lisa Gavinia, and I'm here representing my family's coffee roasting company. We have 263 employees in Vernon, and we strongly oppose AB 781. This will be detrimental to our business and will cause a loss of jobs, as it has already done due to out-of-state competition.
Okay. This will be it.
Madam Chair and members, Dan Carrick on behalf of the League of California Cities. Obviously, those that are here from the community are telling you about the direct impacts, but just from a statewide perspective, we also believe this is too aggressive a solution. The reform's got to have a chance to work, and then maybe move on to other things, but we think that those reforms need a chance to work. Thank you.
My name's Juliet Goff. I own Cal Plastics, a small business. 18 families rely on my business. AB 781 is flawed. It's not going to solve the problem it needs to solve. I urge you to vote no and allow the reforms a chance to work. And I'm also here to present a letter from the National Association of Women Business Owners of Los Angeles. They were here 2 weeks ago supporting. I have an opposition letter that you should have all received today opposing, and I'm a member of NAWBO as well.
Okay, thank you. And Madam.
I'm Rosemary Mucklow, Director Emeritus of National Meat Association for 50 years. I have seen Omaha, Denver, Chicago abandoned by the meat industry. Vernon is a vibrant, industrial, productive city with over 60,000 employees and 2,000 firms. I have just circulated to you a letter written by one of those firms in the meat industry in Vernon. I am here to urge you most strongly not to destroy Vernon the way that Chicago, Omaha, Denver, and other major cities have gone. Thank you.
All right. We've used up the time for the opposition, in fact, a little bit more. I need a show of hands as to folks who are in opposition to 781. All right. Hands down. Now, I need to know who wishes to testify. Okay, I see 6 hands, no more than that. And all I want is ID only. So another 30 seconds. Tell me who you are and who you represent, if anyone, and whether you support or oppose the bill, only. And there was a gentleman in the middle. Sergeant, there was a gentleman in the middle who raised his hand, and that was it. Okay, go.
My name is Carol Menke. I'm a resident of the city of Vernon, and I am not essentially nobody. Please vote no.
Okay. Sir.
Father Tom Schweitzer, pastor of the church in Vernon, Holy Angels Church of the Deaf, a parish, personal parish for the deaf. Can I keep going? Or?
No. Are you opposed to the legislation?
I'm very opposed to it because we need the city for the deaf.
Okay, thank you.
Eric Gustafson, CEO of Coast Packing Company, our fourth-generation family business that we've owned and operated in the city since 1922, and I'm vehemently opposed to AB 781. Thank you.
And sir.
Armando Espinoza, UFCW Local 770. We also oppose this legislation. Thank you.
Senator Daniel Calleros with the Vernon Police Department, Interim Chief of Police. I urge you to vote no on AB 781. On behalf of 64 employees, we will lose our jobs. Thank you.
Hugo Cibrian, President and CEO of Benefits and Risk Solutions. We work with Vernon businesses, and we know that if this bill passes, Vernon businesses will leave, and we will have to lay people off.
And you're opposed to the bill. All right. Sir?
Hi, I'm Ignacio Estrada. I'm the Vice President of the Vernon Police Officers Association, and I urge your no vote today.
Okay, thank you. All right. We've heard from the supporters and the opponents, and now the committee. Questions of the Speaker. Senator LaMalfa.
Thank you. I know, Mr. Speaker, you've been working really hard on this issue. I just, as I look at the diversity of witnesses and folks that have visited my office, and even actual residents that have come and spoke to me about this, it's a pretty tough deal. So I'm much more inclined to let the process work with the former Attorney General and the reforms that are underway to allow them to work and save using the bazooka on the cockroach till a little bit later in the process if we find that Vernon is not performing, because again, we're crossing a pretty big line, pretty big precedent here in disincorporating a city. So if they don't perform, I'm right there with you on saying let's get after them. But I think maybe we're a little early for the disincorporation factor here with when so many folks are focused. I mean, again, as this goes more to your Bill 46, that I think you've succeeded already, no matter what the disposition of the bills is going to be, in that the reformation and the efforts to make Vernon perform is underway and is happening. And so I just wanted to offer that thought to you here before we end. So I think it is on track, and I'm just hesitant to use that to big bazooka at this point before the folks have had a chance to really come into line. We've seen it with Bell, which isn't the same thing, but the legislature's brought them around via measures that allow them to operate within what they need. And besides that, I have a whole ton of small towns in my district that only have a couple hundred people in them as well. So I'm a little bit familiar with not many people being involved in local government. So anyway, I appreciate your efforts. So
thank you.
Thank you, Senator LaMalfa. I think I'd like to make a few comments, and then if there are no, there are some. Okay. Well, in that case, my colleagues can go first. Senator, who had their hand up first? Senator Kehoe or Senator Liu? I didn't see. Senator Kehoe.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Speaker, I think a very good discussion this morning and 2 weeks ago. It is a complicated issue, and I support what you're attempting to do. I think one of the toughest parts of the discussion for me is the jobs issue. I have never been to Vernon, but I understand it's a very productive industrial area, and it sounds to me from the kind of industries that have been mentioned, meat packing, et cetera, that there must be a lot of bricks and mortar investment. I wonder, and I'm happy to hear more public testimony if the chair wants it. It seems to me that we don't want to lose jobs. I know you don't want to lose jobs in California. The threat of businesses walking away. How real is that? How does a meat packing plant or the coffee company or any other business there pick up and move elsewhere and still meet the market in Los Angeles and the rest of Southern California? And have you been able to quantify what the jobs impact might be?
Senator, you're right. Like each member of this committee, I'm committed to not taking actions that would have an adverse impact on jobs. You're also right that many of the businesses in Vernon have a lot of infrastructure investment there. But quite frankly, nobody could speak for any of those businesses better than they can themselves, and that's an individual decision that each of those businesses has to make. Now, I think that when you look at businesses that exist to service the other businesses in that area, obviously those are not businesses with any substantial chance of moving. When you look at businesses that are location-based in terms of serving the Los Angeles metropolitan area, those are businesses as well that are not prone to move. But there are a variety of businesses that exist in Vernon, some that are tied to place and some that, quite frankly, are not. So, what was the challenge that I sought to address? One, we had identified clearly the problem of the generations of corruption that had existed in Vernon and continue to some degrees to exist, and addressed that in AB 46. This committee voted on a 6-3 vote to send that bill forward. But in that process, I heard from business and from labor about very real concerns and wanted to work diligently to address each of the issues that were articulated. I enumerated the 5 areas that had consistently been identified by folks and sought to provide certainty and protection to the greatest degree that it can exist. There is no absolute certainty in any situation, but we sought to address the affordability of power, consistency of land use, consistency of rates for permits, consistency of expedited permitting process, all of the major issues that were listed both by the labor community and by the business community. And now what we're hearing is, well, that's nice, but it still is tied to disincorporation. We're against disincorporation. I can't convince people to go to disincorporation. They're not inclined to go there. My responsibility and this committee's charge is to evaluate if that disincorporation moves forward, how best do we transition? AB 46, which this committee voted on by a 6-3 vote, would just allow the governance to go to the County Board of Supervisors. AB 781, which is before us today, creates greater levels of controls and parameters to have the predictability that we think is essential to allow for the business community to move forward. What is frustrating and difficult to deal with is hearing 2 competing arguments against the bill. On the one hand, the argument is, give us more time, reforms are in the work, let's let them take a foothold, and let's see if that works before we move forward. On the other hand, they say the mere existence of the legislation has a negative impact on jobs. So you can't, one, hold this out because of the negative impact on jobs, and 2, you can't have it both ways. And so 781 seeks to create the predictability and structure to be as supportive of businesses and ongoing jobs in Vernon as possible. And because Vernon is not just a city, but is truly a regional engine for jobs in the county, it is appropriate that the CSD, governed by the County Board of Supervisors, is that front line of governance, because those supervisors collectively represent the business owners and the workers that exist in Vernon. They will be motivated by that interest. But we also sought to make sure that there was a direct input for business and labor and residents in the MAC and the Area Planning Commission to make sure that the actions of the County Board of Supervisors were informed by the real-life experience with direct skin in the game.
Right. It is unfortunate, though, despite your attempts, most of those groups remain opposed, strongly opposed.
It is.
And
And I'm sure we've all had that experience in bills that we've moved forward.
That's right. There is widespread talk, I don't know if that raises to the level of testimony, that this bill will result in litigation, so there'll be another period of uncertainty for businesses. What's your response to that?
The response for that is
much of it's out of your hands.
Right.
But
we can't legislate away, well, we shouldn't legislate away the ability of parties to challenge our actions. If the legislature passes 781 and 46, those who want to litigate will litigate. We should not try to tie their hands, and hopefully there will be an expedited review, and the courts will make an ultimate decision. It is our belief, and you saw the letter that I circulated 2 weeks ago from Dean Chemerinsky of the UC Irvine School of Law, that we're in very safe constitutional territory. Our witness today concurs with that. Obviously, there are paid attorneys on the other side who think differently. That is a question that will properly be before the courts.
And, you know, in the end, I support the bill because you're dealing with a very unique situation here. The City of Bell had voters that finally engaged when the corruption became, you know, front page news in Los Angeles. But here we don't have registered voters that have enough. There's not enough of them to make the necessary changes and to sustain a push for accountability and transparency that is going to be necessary to complete a rehab of the ethical issues in Vernon. So, in the end, although you know it's a complicated bill, in the end I'll support it. And you know I'm interested in hearing what the other members have to say, but when the time comes, I'll be happy to make the motion.
Senator Liu.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Assemblymember Perez. Just like last time, I think I want to thank you, too, for bringing up the issue of corruption in the city of Vernon. You certainly have gotten everyone's attention on this issue. However, I still remain concerned about the economics, the viability of this community. And while you've tried to include businesses in the decision-making process with the MAC and the Planning Commission, there just seems to be this deluge of folks who are really opposed to that involvement. And I don't know what the solution is. I mean, there are other solutions that have been proposed that are not on the table, so to speak. And I'm wary of the solution of LA County being the body by which Vernon is going to be held accountable to, because it's I know East LA, they want to get out of LA County and want to be their own city, kind of thing. It's kind of moving the other way, so it leaves me with just uneasiness. This is a huge step when you disincorporate a city. And I just know that I know the former Attorney General Van de Kamp has a report that's going to come out at the end of July, and I assume that I would feel more comfortable if we waited to see what some of the solutions are before moving forward. But I know that's not here today, so that's where I'm going to be.
All right. Any further statements from the community? Senator DeSaulnier.
Just had a question sort of similar to Senator Liu, but being from the Bay Area, I am unaware of how horrible it is to be in an unincorporated community. Not that you suggest that, but I hear that from other people. So from 600 miles away, are there unincorporated communities under the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors that have good, successful businesses?
Yes.
LA County's got dozens of fully developed unincorporated communities, many of which are industrial in character.
So you're assuming that if the MAC works right and the local planning, and I assume that there are examples of this in other unincorporated communities in LA?
And in Orange and in the other counties that developed rapidly after World War II.
So your assumption, Mr. Speaker, is that this community will be in the same position as those others vis-a-vis the businesses?
Yes, that is my not only my presumption, but my assertion, Senator. To believe otherwise is that none of the cities that any of you represent have the ability to create a business-friendly environment. That there is something unique to this 5.2 square mile piece of property and to the existing governance structure. And I am very mindful of the ongoing opposition from representatives of the business community. There are others in the business community in Vernon who'd like to be in support, but find it to be problematic to express that support given the dynamics in the city. So we can't take into consideration their opinions because they don't feel comfortable being here to express them. The frustration is that now there is this argument that in the last few months since the introduction of my legislation, that there's now reform, and that we should be informed by that reform and have that convince us not to take action. This is not a new problem. As we were here 2 weeks ago, I talked about indictments and other issues going back to the 1940s and continuing on through recent times. And if you look at the actions of the City Council, these are not actions of folks who are genuine about reforms. They've approved term limits that don't take effect for a decade and can be easily reversed once no one is looking. Their Housing Commission report is to the City Council, so instead of creating independence, it only creates another layer of bureaucracy while preserving the city's control over its voters. Even the relationship with the former Attorney General is not an independent one, it's a contractual one. He has a contract with the city where an element of that, as disclosed in open session meetings, is that his loyalty is to the City Council. No independent authority to push through his recommendations, only to report to them and have them decide what to do or what not to do. These are Potemkin reforms that don't do anything to address the root issues of corruption in Vernon, which is the lack of an independent electorate. Now, I want to be clear. I take business and labor groups at their word that they genuinely believe that they can reform Vernon, and I'm happy to consider proposals that will permanently resolve the corruption stemming from the lack of an independent electorate, but we haven't seen anything that addresses the corruption, the enforceability of these reforms, and creates a structure that is constitutionally sound. Now, obviously, opponents of 46 and 781 have raised constitutional issues. We believe otherwise and are comfortable with our standing. I can't put forward something that others generate that I don't believe is constitutionally enforceable. This, I believe, is.
Mr. Chair, or
Yes.
Madam Chair, I appreciate all the comments. Being from a distance, I just wonder what will happen if this bill is signed into law. And I'm respectful of Senator Lieu and yourself. I'm just curious as to what's so different. I know that LA County is a huge institution, so I hear what Senator Lieu is saying as well. But thank you.
And if I may, Senator, your county, Contra Costa County, has CSDs.
Mm-hmm. And some of them work, and some of them don't work as well as I wish. A lot of it, my experience in a much smaller county is dependent on the elected officials.
Correct. Thank you.
Senator Huff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been some questions asked of the Speaker regarding how this bill would impact the businesses. I'd like to ask if one of the businesses could ask how it will impact them, because I think they're probably in a better position to answer than the one who seeks to disincorporate them. If, with all due respect, if the Farmer John...
We did have testimony.
I apologize, I missed it. But there have been some questions asked that may be fair just to have some counterpoint to it.
And for the record, Senator, I said that myself, that these are individual evaluations that each business has to make, and I'm not in a position to presuppose that decision-making for them.
Thank you, Senator. I think the question that was posed was, how does a company consider leaving the state and still servicing the local areas successfully? And what I wanted to state was...
And leaving your investment in infrastructure behind or selling it or...
Yeah, and that's basically what happens. And that's what's happened with in the meatpacking business, furniture making, apparel, you name it. There's industries in the city of Vernon that are the last ones standing. There's companies there that are the last major competitor that's able to survive because of what Vernon provides. All of my competitors are based back in the Midwest and the East Coast. They can pay that freight penalty and still service this market. We could make our products in Omaha and still service and sell hot dogs throughout California. We don't want to do that. But it's been done. And breakfast sausage. And I want it to be fresher and made locally for you. But that is a very real risk. And we don't want it both ways. We want to try reform. And if you want more reform, we're open to it. More oversight, more reform. Let our city run itself. We don't want this cloud to continue of 781 and of 46. This needs to go away. And if it doesn't, there won't be a major meat packer, and there won't be a major furniture maker and apparel maker and coffee roaster anymore in Los Angeles because of that.
Thank you very much. There was another comment made by the speaker that the corruption hasn't been addressed. I was wondering if I could ask, Madam Chair, if we could have the city manager talk about what they've done to address the corruption, because the speaker said they haven't really addressed that.
I
know they have taken some steps.
Yes, at your request, very briefly. Is the city manager here?
Yes, he's here.
Oh, fire chief.
Briefly being the operative word, I believe.
Yes, please.
The corruption issues as presented were multiple salaries for being double-tiered, meaning they would receive a W-2 and a 1099 under the enterprise fund and the utilities. We've done away with them. They are gone. When I came in 10 months ago, we did a broad brush. We got rid of many contracts. Many people were separated from the city. The other interaction with other jurisdictions and my interaction with League of Cities is that, and with Mr. Van de Kamp, is he's made recommendations, and we have enacted every one that he's recommended, every one. And as far as the corruption, when you say there's decades, there's 3 people that I know of, and I've been there 25 years. 3 people.
That was about a decade ago.
Well, the person in question that I'm still having to deal with from his shadow is a gentleman that made an outlandish amount of money that I didn't agree with in the first place, and he separated from the city in 2005. He's been gone since 2005. We've been fixing many of these things. We've been working a little bit in a vacuum, but we're addressing these issues. We brought in very competent people to help through the process, and by the council asking me to step up and address these issues, they've given me the full support to make these reforms. I've been there for 10 months. We've been doing a heck of a job.
Yeah. And thank you very much for that. I come from a city in Diamond Bar that was the second latest incorporated city in the county. Back in 1989. I lived through that. I voted against incorporation the first time. I voted for it the second time. The thought was that an extra layer of government would cost more money. Actually, it's just the opposite. We were a donor community, as Vernon will be a donor community. And once we incorporated, we were able to keep those resources to benefit our business, benefit our residents. And it seems like the reverse is happening here with a city that has while only 100 people, they incorporated by the laws of the state, 1,800 businesses, 50,000 employees. They would get swallowed up by another governmental entity that's looking for revenues. I mean, we're all looking for it. And frankly, this bill carries on a troublesome trend that we in the state are doing of balancing our budget on the backs of the cities, whether it was going after, the different stuff a few years ago that nailed down with 1A, then there was Prop 22. We keep taking some of the local funds. The voters keep saying, don't do that. Now we've killed the redevelopment agencies, and we're redirecting their monies. And this is a very slippery slope, I believe, when we start disincorporating cities that are actually following the rules. And for corruption, they've made some changes, but even if they didn't, there are entities that the district attorney is certainly tasked with that. I believe the state attorney general has the ability to weigh in on that. We've had controversy. We've had corruption within the state house, but we haven't had a charge to shut down the assembly because there's some corrupt member over there. We send them to prison, send them to jail. Those things happen, and I think there is a punishment that fits the crime, but killing the city is not the way to go about it. Municipal Advisory Committee is not the same as self-rule. The key word is advisory. And by the way, we had a Municipal Advisory Committee in Diamond Bar, and the reason we incorporated, because they weren't listened to. Because they get there, they do the little holy huddle, they feel real good because they're part of the process, and then the supervisor ignores them and continue to take their revenues out. So I am not comfortable with this. That's no new news. I wasn't comfortable with it a couple weeks ago either. But I think, let the reforms take place. You've made an excellent point by saying we are watching you. They get that. I think if you pull back now, you score a victory and move on. I know you have a different victory you want to score, but
is the same true for your legislation? That you've raised issues, and once you raise the issue, we shouldn't vote on your legislation, Senator?
Well, when my legislation is wrong, yes, and I believe yours is wrong. I believe it's just, and that's obviously we're here to represent our own citizens. Anyway, that's my points. I appreciate the opportunity to say them.
All right, further comments? I'll just make some closing comments and then go to the speaker. 2 weeks ago, we agreed that disincorporation was the route to go down. So today, what's in front of us is how that transpires, what kind of conditions will exist. And we have a process in the state which is called LAFCO, put forward by the Cortese-Knox Act. And essentially what the Speaker has done, in my view, in 671, is to mirror that process. And I think that's the appropriate way to go. In addition, when we talk about certainty and protection, added into this are some protections that, frankly, I'm not sure I think my community might like. Low utility rates guaranteed for a certain period of time, and the zoning and planning mechanisms established, and the taxes and fees held for a while, and licenses and services, the level of service. I mean, given what cities are facing right now, I'm not sure those kinds of guarantees could be had anywhere. So I think that's a level of certainty that I think it was wise to put in here, and I'm glad that you did that. With that, we still have the issue of this one amendment. Did you have a chance to look at that language?
I do, Senator.
I believe
Might I suggest just a slight tweak that I think speaks to the committee's...
You have the only copy.
I'll bring it up to you as I'm done. In item 2, the pre-existing language was the additional terms and conditions further and do not hinder the purpose of the bill that enacted this section and Assembly Bill AB 46 of the 2011-2012 regular session. My suggested revision to that would be the additional terms and conditions are consistent and not in conflict with the provisions of this section.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sorry,
That's fine.
Up to the chair.
That's fine. All right. Then do I have a motion? All right. It has been moved to pass as amended to appropriations. Would you like to close?
I would. I thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the committee for its consideration of AB 46 2 weeks ago and AB 781 today. And there have been a few questions asked since I last responded that really are more appropriate to the discussion around AB 46 than they are to 781, but I don't like leaving questions hanging, so I'd like to address them. The question was about the reforms. So the first action was to amend the establishment of 2 5-year terms for the City Council. The first council member will not be termed out of office until 2022, leaving him in office for over an additional decade. Term limits do not prevent the council members from appointing to the City Council their successors. Term limits do not ensure regular elections, nor do they guarantee that the elections are free and fair. In a city with a very small independent electorate, term limits mean little because the successors will be subject to the same pressures as their predecessor. Moreover, term limits can be easily extended or eliminated in the future by the same council. Second action was salary adjustments from $70,000 to $25,000 for all council members after the expiration of the current term, and an 18% voluntary reduction in their current salary. Again, voluntary can be changed at any time. Permanent salary reductions will not incur until the end of the member's current term, thus taking effect between 2012 and 2016. Extravagant pensions of the council members are not impacted. Other sources of profit, such as the lucrative city contracts that benefit the friends and families of the council members, are not impacted. Under a dependent electorate, the City Council can easily reverse these actions in the future. The third was salary establishment and adjustment for the City Administrator. Again, extravagant pensions for the City Administrator, not impacted. Previous City Administrator currently collecting a pension of $509,667.60 after pleading guilty. The Fire Chief and the Police Chief are recommended to have their salaries increased. The City Council can increase the City Administrator's salary in the future. Extravagant pensions of former city employees are not impacted. Other sources of profit, such as the lucrative city contracts that benefit the friends and family of city employees, not impacted. Elimination of certain health benefits beginning July 1st, 2011. Council members will continue to receive reimbursements of health expenditures that are not covered by insurance or Medicare and other ancillary health benefits until they retire. Under the dependent electorate, the City Council can reverse these actions in the future. Again, there have been council members who have taken reimbursements in excess of $100,000 in a calendar year above and beyond their full health care coverage. Fifth action was creation of a housing commission. The Housing Commission is not independent from the City Council. Members of the commission are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the City Council, and one member is a City Council member. The Housing Commission can only make recommendations to the City Council on housing policy. No enforcement mechanism. The City Council reject the Housing Commission's recommendation or adopt them and simply not implement them. And on and on and on. The retention of lawyers to do an ethics training. Ethics training is already required by law. Clearly a demonstration that they've only recently maintained an interest in compliance with the law. Under a dependent electorate, the City Council can reverse these actions. Let's go back to the housing for a second. We still have city employees, family members, and others living in city housing. The city administrator has his nephews living in city-owned, subsidized housing. There are people who references were made to in the past in terms of self-dealing who still have relationships with the city. The reforms that have been put forward are Potemkin reforms, as I said before. There's no ongoing enforceability. The reason for 781, though, was to address the issues of how you transition into a new governance system. We've already, as a committee, taken action to move the football forward with respect to disincorporation. I think the committee's analysis is on point in terms of the protections that we try to establish, the predictability that we seek to create, and the fact that we're creating an ability to have a greater voice for business owners and for workers in the governance decisions on a moving forward basis. I ask for your aye vote.
All right. The motion is to pass as amended to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Volk?
Aye.
Volk, aye. Huff? No. Huff, no. Desaulniers? Fuller? Fuller, no. Hancock? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa? LaMalfa, no. Lou?
Not voting. You got 3. You have 3 votes. You need 5 in order for it to emerge. We'll leave it open for the absent members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, we're about halfway through our agenda. So in file order, Assemblymember Solario or Calderon? Oh, we did. I'm sorry. Okay. Assemblymember Calderon? No. Assemblymember Williams, I thought I saw you. Oh, there you are. Come sit down. All right. AB 438, welcome. There are proposed amendments. Perhaps you wish I will pass those out, Sergeant. Okay, Assemblymember Williams, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Senators, I'm here to present AB 438, and I just want to...
Do you want to wait a minute?
Sure.
It's probably louder where you are. Can we have the room cleared quickly, please? Thank you. All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Assemblymember.
I just want to start by sincerely thanking the committee, both staff and the chair, for being willing to work with me on this bill. I'm happy to accept the amendments and look forward to working with you as this moves forward, if it moves forward to the floor.
Okay. I appreciate that. Assemblymember Williams came to my office yesterday and we had a discussion. I support the direction of the bill. I just felt that it needed to be a little tightened up. And These amendments go in that direction. There are still some other issues that remain, which we will continue to work on. Some protections. I'm sorry, Senator Kehoe is not here. Some protections for if there is a contracting out, some protections for the workers involved, the public employees involved, and there's a question of the sunset, which may be a little too restrictive. So we'll continue to work on those before this comes to the floor, and I appreciate your willingness to partner on this. This has been a difficult process between the Assembly member and I. I want to thank you again for working with me. My concern is the libraries. That's it, the public library system and its integrity. And that is the most important thing. And I know it is to the Assembly member as well. So with that, please present.
I'd just be happy in the interest of time. I know this has already been a long hearing for you all. I know I've spoken to many of you. I know you know this bill, so I'm just would like to turn it over to my witnesses at this point.
In support, witnesses in support. Who's on?
Hi,
Welcome.
My name's Cindy Singer, and I am the library manager in Hacienda Heights. And I really want to urge you to vote yes for this bill. One of the big things I'm seeing is a question of the money. The money that goes to the library should be spent in the library. The way we spend the money in the government, as you know, is we spend what's there. We have to spend it. We're not trying to keep some back in order that we pay ourselves more. And also, there's an issue with some of these private companies that are out of state, and they have their centralized portion in another state. So that means our California tax dollars are going to this other state, being spent in this other state, and they're then paying their corporate taxes to another state. So I think this is really important that we get this bill passed so that people will think about this before they decide to privatize their library.
Correct. In support. Who's next? Don't be shy.
Hi, my name is Lori Rivas, and I'm an 18-year resident of Santa Clarita, California. As a homeschooling mother of 4 kids, I rely heavily on the public library for my children's education. As one of more than 2,000 homeschooling families in Santa Clarita, I was surprised last August to learn that our city was considering pulling out of the Los Angeles County library system. And I wondered, how could our city do such a thing without consulting the public? Hundreds of citizens packed City Council chambers on August 24th for the first and only public hearing on our libraries. 47 of us spoke out against the motion. 550 turned in public comment cards. We filled the city's email boxes. Our libraries were not in crisis, and we did not ask for this change. And yet, after 3 hours of testimony, and in the face of such enormous, broad, and diverse opposition, with a single vote, the City Council pulled out of the county library system and awarded a 5-year contract to a private company based in Maryland. But we fought on. We applied to their Library Advisory Committee. We engaged in public discussions. We researched the city's research. We questioned the city's conclusions. And for almost a year, thousands of us spoke out and petitioned the city to listen to us. But the city continued to discount our voices. The city tossed us aside as agitators or union organizers or fermenters and many other derogatory terms. And so here I am to bear witness to the travesty that occurred in Santa Clarita, to speak about a community ignored, about library deals made in secret, and I ask you to pass AB 438, a measure to require a transparent and open dialogue between government and citizens regarding public library services.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I have some handouts.
Yes, give those to the sergeant, and he'll be giving them out to us. Okay, in support, I want you to go identification only, please.
Michelle Cass with the Service Employees International Union. Thank you for your willingness to continue working with us.
And I thank you as well.
Caitlin Vega for the California Labor Federation, also here in support.
Thank you. Further witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Please come forward quickly.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Good morning. Hi, Senator. Kira Ross on behalf of the League of California Cities. We also view libraries as the centerpieces of our communities. They are where people gather, come to learn, use the internet, look for jobs, and much, much more. In this time of fiscal constraint, many cities are grappling with making tough fiscal choices while still preserving the critical public services like our libraries. One option for cities is to look at a public-private contract for staffing services at libraries. City council members routinely make administrative decisions, like the decision to contract out services. When they make that decision, they routinely look at the cost-benefit of that contract, asking questions like, will the potential contract still provide the service the city is looking for at a fair price? This is a basic function of a local government, to provide services to the community in an efficient manner. We believe AB 438 undermines that ability of a city to do its job by dictating to the city the terms that the city officials must include in the contract for library services. In fact, the bill contains a number of different requirements that a city looking to contract out library services must follow. When we asked our cities about the effect on this bill, they told us what the committee analysis points out, that the practical effect of this bill is to simply ban a city from contracting out library services. So what does this mean to the city that is facing a severe budget deficit and is trying to preserve libraries in their community? With AB 438 tying their hands on contracting out the service, it likely means reduced library hours, staff layoffs, and library branch closures. Cities in California are invested in keeping our communities vibrant and healthy. Our public libraries are a very big part of that. But in tough fiscal times, our governments need the flexibility to make the decisions our council members are elected to make. We urge your no vote on AB 438.
All right. One more speaker and then ID only. So you want to decide? Do we want the librarian?
Yes, I'll go ahead and defer that. Could I just clarify from you, Madam Chair, about the amendments, which are not set forth in the analysis, what precisely was agreed to by you and the author?
We have a mock-up.
Okay.
There were concerns expressed in the staff analysis of certain areas, competitive bidding, transparency and accountability, and I've forgotten their name. And financial analysis required, and limited contract lengths. In our discussion with the author, we eliminated the sections of the bill that we thought were too prescriptive and too narrowly drawn. My intent being I thought and still believe the original bill would have eliminated the opportunity for the local government to consider contracting out services or the library, and I didn't want to do that. So in that sense, this is a little bit more flexible. However, I do believe that the state has an interest that in protecting our libraries and making certain that if a local community considers this process, that it needs to be controlled and there need to be certain standards. That's the intent of the amendments, and I understand you haven't seen them, but the author and I have.
Okay, and so those provisions, and so when you indicated that there would be further negotiations, those provisions are out of the bill, but you'll have discussions about other provisions.
But there are issues of public employee protections that I think are important, and the issue of the sunset is probably too restrictive.
So there will be a sunset, but you haven't decided on the number of years.
I think we have to talk about that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then I'm Chris McKaylee on behalf of Library Systems and Services. We're available, but I'd like to defer that we had Barbara, the library director for the Camarillo Public Library, and Jim with the Friends of the Reading Library available.
I would like to hear from you.
Sure.
Thank you. Barbara Wolf, Camarillo City Librarian. And Camarillo, actually, Public Library was part of the Ventura County system until January, when the city decided to take control of its library locally and outsource the management of that to LSSI. And I am here today to advocate on behalf of libraries and library users who I don't believe are being served by this bill. It was very nice. The author, Assemblyman Williams, came to the Camarillo Library for a tour, and my understanding from our discussions there was that this was about saving jobs. And I'm not certain that it's possible in today's economic climate to save jobs. My colleagues across California are being faced with severe budget deficits in libraries. They are having to take furloughs, let librarians go, let library staff go. They're having to reduce hours, close days, and close branches. So the unintended effect, I believe, of this, which this bill cannot actually stop, is that libraries are going to close hours. And I would like the committee to consider how many hundreds or thousands of Californians every day will come to a library in search of wanting to apply for a job online, upgrade their resumes, get help with job search skills, access small business resources, and will be turned away because the library is closed. So these are my gravest concerns, and that is why I'm here to speak on behalf of those library constituents.
Okay, thank you. In opposition, there was somebody from the Friends?
Yes.
Yes, welcome. Very briefly.
Thank you. My name is Jim Cherigioli. I'm president of the Friends of the Reading Library, and we went through a agonizing procedure after our new library was constructed in getting keeping the operation in a good manner. We feel that the bill is ill-conceived. It takes away flexibility from the local governments, has nothing to do with increasing access to libraries and their services. It is deceptive and a union ploy, our reading. The real truth is that library systems, along with many other local government services such as technology, engineering, legal services, have been outsourced, and it is not a privatization of those. All control remains with the city and, in our case, the Library Advisory Committee. If AB 438 had been law prior to 2007, our local government would have been unnecessarily restricted in its ability to make the decisions that are best for Shasta County. It was the county and the city of Reading who decided that they wanted to contract for the services as provided by LSSI. And this was advertised, and LSSI was primarily the only bidder. This ability would have been impossible had AB 438 been in effect. As an example, the bill, I believe, as it currently exists, requires a library service contract to be approved or renewed only at an open and public regular meeting of the City Council. We have no problem. It would prohibit a City Council from acting on a library services contract unless a hearing notice had been posted at each library within the city. No problem. But at least 4 weeks in advance of the hearing and mailed to all library card holders. What about the balance of the citizens of the community or the county? If they're going to hold it to library patrons, it's not proper. Then the contract would be limited to 2 years. That's insufficient for any operation to justify taking over something of this nature.
I'll ask you to sum up. I'll ask you to sum up.
In the end, let's see. I urge you to take whatever steps you can see that the bill goes to defeat. As was stated in an article in the Oakland Tribune on June 6th, any legislator who places the public interest above the special interests of a government employee union or any union would have no trouble voting against AB 438. Thank you.
Thank you. Identification only, please.
Johan Claes, representing the city of Livermore, opposed to the measure, but like you, Senator Wilk, the city cares most of all about libraries, wants to make sure that the libraries are not ultimately closed, and it likes the direction you're heading in.
Next, please. Thank you very much.
Yes, Madam Chair. Jim Gross on behalf of the City of Riverside and the County of Riverside. I have a process question, however. My question is that the mock-up that Senator Hernandez handed me shows that a number of provisions have been deleted from the bill. I assume these are the amendments that would be made. And it's basically items 3, this is on page 4, items 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, and then on page 5, number 12. But you said you were going to continue to be working with the sponsors of the bill.
Correct.
Okay, so that could change, obviously. That some could come back in, some could be out. Is it possible that you are going to also consult with the opponents of the bill on those issues?
I'm sure that the author will be consulting broadly on the bill.
So we'll leave it to the author, and that will be the end of it. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right.
My name is Anthony Gonsalves. I'm here on behalf of Camarillo and also City of Reading and many other cities that are in opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, David
Let
Wolf.
me just,
sorry.
Mr. Gross, perhaps I need to add to that, of course we retain an interest in what happens to the bill before it goes to the floor. So we'll be working closely with the author, but really the author's in charge of his bill.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, members, my apologies. David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're opposed.
Madam Chair, David Jones on behalf of the City of Murrieta in opposition.
Okay. Next, in opposition.
Thomas Vu with California Chamber of Commerce in opposition.
Joe Rolfe, Supervising Librarian, Camarillo Public Library in opposition.
Maxine Mantell on behalf of the City of West Hollywood in opposition.
Kathy Van Austin, Rose and Kendall on behalf of the City of Fresno in opposition.
Kirk Blackburn of Ellison Wilson Advocacy on behalf of the cities of Inglewood and Temecula. Opposed.
Further opposition? All right, seeing none. Questions from the committee? All right, Senator Huff and then Senator Kehoe.
Yeah, this is an interesting subject matter. There again, going back to a previous bill where we're talking about the nature of counties and sucking out resources, this legislation, not yours, but the existing legislation, actually does provide a tool for local governments that have county libraries to exact the best library they can by having a tool to negotiate with the county. Case in point, when Diamond Bar Incorporated in 1989, we kept the county as a library provider. The original legislation allowed us to withdraw, to use that revenue stream to do something similar to what LSSI has done with some other county-run systems. While Diamond Bar has not chosen to do that, I took the tour up to visit, at that time I think it was Calabasas, that had a system run by them. It was very professional. They had current stacks. There's nothing in here that I can see in your cost analysis that would quantify the qualitative difference between new stacks that you often get when you're contracting for particular services as opposed to old stacks that often inhabit the shelves and stacks of county-run libraries. And so if we take away that ability and yet we don't qualify what it is we're giving to the cities in return, we are taking away a tool for them to actually have the best possible library for their residents, whether or not it goes to somebody else. It's just a bargaining tool that helps them out. So I think that's problematic from the start of it. I also have 5 of my cities and a number of other organizations that I respect that are opposed to it, probably for that reason, because they understand the value of having some leverage with a county. In the case of Diamond Bar, we're building a brand new library now, because I still feel like I'm back there, but it's a county library. but we negotiated with them. We got the newer stacks. We got them to put the resources in there. So it's a win-win situation. I think that this doesn't help accommodate that, so I can't support it today.
Well, as a city council member for 7 years, I know that you need to have some leveraging with the county on occasion. I'll tell you, in particular, the county once, overcharges for elections, and we needed to be able to go our own route in elections. That is why the bill does not prohibit privatization or does not prohibit a city from withdrawing from a county system. If a city wishes to withdraw from a county system as a public entity, this bill would not apply. But it is only in the cases in which it withdraws from a county system in order to pursue the privatization route. And I would just say that the core of the bill is simply public disclosure. Both we and the opponents keep on invoking librarians and libraries, and I just wanted to read just a section from the American Library Association publication, Keeping Public Libraries Public, a checklist for communities considering privatization. The most important, I would think, is that privatization contracts for the public library must be carefully scrutinized to ensure that the community is receiving top service for a fair price. Library privatization sometimes has hidden and uncontrolled costs and may not save money in the long run. Question is, all the things that LSSI or another company promises the community for cost savings should have proof, and it should be proof that is presented to the public in a public meeting with adequate notice. Right. That's what I view as the core of this bill.
And I agree with that. All right, Senator Kehoe, just a reminder, we have to be out of here. We have 6 bills to go. And
I think
all
the chair's amendments with the author are a very good compromise. Preserve local flexibility and give some assurance that there'd be an orderly transition for municipal employees that may or may not be directed to a private contractor. And I'm prepared to support the bill. I commend the both of you for working it out. I'll make a motion whenever you're ready.
All right. Seeing no further questions, I'll ask the author to close.
I just respectfully ask for your aye vote and I really appreciate the committee giving this bill the attention that it has. Thank you.
And thank you to the author for working with the chair and with the staff. And do we have a motion?
So moved.
All right, it's Senator Kehoe do pass as amended. Please call the roll.
Wolk.
Aye.
Wolk, aye. Huff. Huff, no. DeSaulnier. Fuller. Fuller, no. Hancock. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe. Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa. LaMalfa, no. Liu. Liu, aye.
It has 4 votes. It needs 5 to emerge from the committee. We will keep the roll open for the absent members. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Calderon. This is item number 7. Let me just remind the committee and all authors that we have to be out of here. There's another committee that's going to meet here. We have 6 bills to go. Chuck, this one, Senator Calderon.
Yes, I don't have the syllabus. Is item 7, 708 or 155?
No, 155.
155. 155 should be relatively simple. It's a bill that creates a nexus for out-of-state retailers that sell into California if they're a subsidiary corporation and if that subsidiary corporation helps them in the development and sale of a product that only they sell. And it would, I think, establish a nexus. There's a bill similar, went to the governor's office. Mine's just a little bit clearer about the nexus. But more so, it's more an identity issue. The bill's identified with me, and I do a number of interviews, and I want to still help that issue along. So I'm continuing along with the bill.
All right. Witnesses in support? Very briefly. Really briefly.
Steve Block on behalf of the City of Berkeley in support.
Thank you. Further support? Opposition? Also briefly. Come forward, and I mean briefly. Otherwise, we'll be thrown out.
Madam Chair, Tim Coyle on behalf of the Direct Marketing Association and the Internet Alliance.
in opposition to this measure. We do understand this has been signed into law by the governor, but we continue to oppose this means of increasing use tax collection.
Fine. And
Thank you, Madam Chair. Gina Rodriguez with Caltax, still in opposition.
All right. Opposition, Dave.
Madam Chair, members, David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're in opposition.
Thank you. Further opposition? Hearing none. Is there questions from the committee? Do we have a motion? It do pass to appropriations. Please call the roll.
Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Huff. DeSaulnier. Fuller. Fuller, no. Hancock. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa. LaMalfa, no. Liu. Liu, aye.
It has 4 votes. It needs another to emerge. We'll leave the roll open.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Calderon, Assemblymember AB 780.
Yes, Madam Chair, members, this is a measure that arises from the days when the legislature actually would raise sales taxes. In this case, sales taxes that were in effect during the negotiation of a fixed price contract would then increase the cost of the contract without any way for the contractor to recoup the loss, if you will. So what this bill would do is that whenever there's a fixed price contract in place and the legislature increases sales tax that affect the price of the contract, that the contractor would be able to submit a change order for the difference. And conversely, if taxes went down, the state could then lessen the price of the contract with the contractor.
Right. Good bill. Support on both sides. Very briefly. Support.
Very briefly, Madam Chair, Dave Ackerman representing the Associated General Contractors, prime sponsor on the bill. This is similar to a bill that came out of this committee that you sort of re-architected the bill last year. This reflects the same form of the bill as it passed the Senate last year. Good. We ask for your support.
Okay.
Todd Bloomstein on behalf of the Southern California Contractors Association, as well as Kevin Pedrati for the Engineering Utility Contractors Association support.
Okay.
Madam Chair, members, Barry Brokaw on behalf of the Asphalt Pavement Association of California in support of the bill. Thank you.
Gina Rodriguez, Caltax, in support.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members, Ralph Fine for the California Special Districts Association. With the amendment reflected in your analysis, we would remove our opposition and thank the author.
Yes, their suggested amendments by staff are acceptable to me, and I would accept those as author's amendments.
Great. All right, the bill has been moved. Opposition? All right, it's been moved. Any questions or comments? Let's move to a vote. Please call the roll.
Wolf.
It's due pass to appropriate, as amended to appropriations. Aye.
Wolf, aye. Huff. DeSaulnier. Fuller. Aye. Fuller, aye. Hancock. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe. LaMalfa. Aye. LaMalfa, aye. Liu. Aye. Liu, aye. You have 5-0. 5-0.
5 votes. That's enough to emerge from the committee. We will leave the roll open.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair and members.
Thank you. We have 4 bills left. Assemblymember Ma, you're on. 485, Infrastructure Financing Districts.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members. I'm pleased to present AB 485, which will assist cities and counties in creating infrastructure financing districts, IFDs, to fund transit-oriented development projects. Transit-oriented development can improve local and regional economies by providing needed commercial and residential development projects, including investment in local transit villages by creating jobs through the construction of these facilities and by the employment opportunities associated with related entertainment, retail, residential, and other mixed-use development. AB 485 provides the additional funding that communities need to achieve SB 375 and AB 32 greenhouse gas reduction goals and to create healthy, livable communities. AB 485 will provide essential tools for local governments to create jobs without raising taxes. AB 485 does not implement new taxes. The bill makes no changes to current property taxes, but rather allows the city and county to direct incremental increases in property taxes within an IFD to tax transit-oriented development that meets specific criteria under the Transit Village Development Planning Act. AB 45 is very similar to previous legislation I carried since I came to this legislature as a time when the state is examining realignment and redevelopment dollars tax increment financing for transit-oriented development is even more crucial. With me today is Tim Schott from BART.
Madam Chair and members, Tim Schott on behalf of the San Francisco Bay Area Rapid Transit District, and in particular on behalf of BART Board Director Tom Radulovich, who's been a very big supporter of transit-oriented development. We thank Ms. Ma for carrying the bill, here to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. In support of the bill? In support of the bill? Yes. Okay.
Sabrina Means on behalf of the California Transit Association in support.
All right, further support? Opposition to the bill? Come forward. David?
Madam Chair, members, thank you. David Wolf here with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're opposed to the bill, largely on grounds of the elimination of the voter approval. Current law says IFDs need a 2/3 vote. This bill would eliminate that threshold for these transit projects. We believe long-term debt instruments should be subject to that, so we'd ask for your no vote. Thank you.
All right.
Gina Rodriguez with Caltax in opposition. Again, eliminating voter approval for the infrastructure financing removes the people from the decision process of what their communities will look like, how bonds are issued, and how property revenues are spent. Therefore, we oppose.
Christopher Carlisle with the California Association of Realtors in opposition to the bill. While we are supportive of affordable housing, the individuals paying the taxes for these districts should decide whether the district is established, and as a result, we would ask for your no vote.
All right, in opposition? Very briefly.
Nick Camerado with California Building Industry Association. Regrettably, in the oppose unless amended, we have put some amendments forward for those folks, for the author and the members of the committee to consider.
Okay, thank you. Further opposition? All right, questions from the committee? The recommendation is do pass, and I want to thank the author for, first of all, dealing with this subject and putting into effect infrastructure financing districts, and looking forward to the transit districts that will emerge. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership as well. And I just want to answer the opposition. There will still be a vote. It will just be a vote of the local county board of supervisors or city council now. Forming an IFD has been very, very cumbersome. There's only been one formed since the bill passed, and that is the Legoland, the new hotel adjacent to the Legoland theme park.
All right. All right, I'll take that as a close. Do we have a motion? The move, do pass. Please call the roll.
Wolf?
Aye.
Wolf, aye. Huff? Huff, no. DeSaulnier? Fuller? Fuller, no. Hancock? Hernandez? Aye. Hernandez, aye. Kehoe? Aye. Kehoe, aye. LaMalfa? LaMalfa, no. Liu? Aye. Liu, aye.
We have 4-3. You need one more vote. We'll leave the Hancock aye. You have 5 votes.
Hancock aye.
We'll leave it open for the rest of the members. Thank you. All right, we have 3 more bills. Bob Wykowski, come on, Assembly Member, AB 506. I think I should begin. Maybe you would like to begin.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We've had let's see. I have some introductory remarks and then go to the understanding that we worked out yesterday. I think we have worked out.
Great.
I believe we've worked out.
Go ahead.
Members, AB 506 establishes an alternative dispute resolution that is intended to help public entities avoid a protracted, expensive, and damaging bankruptcy. The first goal of this bill is to help municipalities avoid the filing of a Chapter 9 altogether. The second, if a municipality can't avoid filing, then the process is to set up in the bill should dramatically reduce the number of motions to dismiss once the bankruptcy begins and sets up the framework for the realignment. Filing a Chapter 9 is never a good alternative for any municipality. Recently, in the last month, we had amendments that provided a role for the state auditor to provide an impartial assessment of the municipality's fiscal status, and I appreciate the input that I've had with the chair in adding that important element to there. Yesterday, the chair and I talked about an understanding to keep the bill moving so that it doesn't become a 2-year bill, and we've talked about several additional amendments that will be positive for the legislation. Based on our discussion, I believe that if the chair is on this chair's suggestion, that we're going to move to reduce the bill to an intent bill at this time and refer it to the Senate Rules Committee. And I understand that I haven't worked out the whole process because I am a freshman here, but my chief clerk in the Assembly has said that there's two ways that this can go. Is sort of one, the chair and I work together on, sort of line by line changing the original or the bill as thus the amendment, and then that would be brought to the Rules Committee. I guess there's another is that the chair of the Rules just takes over the bill and does what he would like to do.
Not a bad person to have control of your bill.
This is a collaborative process bill, so hopefully that we, in the spirit of collaboration, we do that. I have 24 years as a practicing bankruptcy attorney, and so I would hope that we can continue to work there. There are some items that we'll be looking at, and I wanted the committee to know is that the time frame for selecting the neutral evaluator is one of the things that have come up. Which parties would participate in that beginning process to get the evaluator done? Some of the confidential information may be helpful in the bankruptcy process if that's there, in the timetable for the audit, and an additional emergency off-ramp that would go into effect. And at this time, I have some witnesses who have traveled far for this afternoon's hearing, so I would like to introduce Carol Dennison, a practicing mediator and bankruptcy attorney.
Yes, we should hand out the amend, which is essentially moving this to intent language, as you said, and sending it to, as amended. The bill would be amended down to intent language and sent to the Rules Committee. And my original recommendation was a 2-year bill. We talked a little bit more, and in order to see if this can be worked out in the next month or two, in the next month. Hope you weren't planning any vacation. To see in a collaborative process, not just you and me, but folks that have an interest in the bill and knowledge about the bill are willing to assist, and hopefully we'll come back with something this session.
Yeah, and I should let members know that I have personally spent approximately 6 hours with representatives from the Rural League, from the League of Cities, from the counties, from the special districts, working since the introduction of this legislation shocked them, working on some changes, as well as the mediation community and the public employees. Carol?
All right, welcome. I'll ask you to be brief, just because we'll be kicked out of here soon.
Thank you for the opportunity to be heard. I also want to thank Assemblyman Wachowski for the opportunity to work with him on this. I've been a mediator and a bankruptcy lawyer for 26 years. I have no client representing today other than a civic interest and a high level of concern about meeting the needs of municipalities as they deal with the various financial crises that we've all read about in the paper. Why is this bill so important, and why do we need to do something this session as opposed to a 2-year bill? The off-ramp here in terms of a Chapter 9, a lot of the constituents seem to ignore the bankruptcy code's requirement that you have to be a debtor who has made a good faith effort to negotiate with creditors. Most bankruptcy cases, Vallejo being one, they spent the better part of a year litigating the eligibility requirement. That's a huge loss of attorney's fees and time. It also didn't help the parties get into a mindset toward working toward an easy plan of adjustment, because the more protracted that litigation got, the more hardened positions got. Using mediation or an alternative dispute resolution process, as this bill provides an off-ramp that gives the parties a safe place for a confidential process. All of the interested parties can be involved, and everything that we've heard in the consensus building process here that deals with the procedures can easily be worked out in terms of the selection of the mediator, the time. All of that mechanic can be addressed. If you don't have a bill, one of the things that we're going to be faced with next quarter and ongoing quarters are going to be the potential of defaults on bonds as the letters of credit that provide enhancement for those bonds come due. and the smaller and mid-sized municipalities have no off-ramp. Bankruptcy is not an option given the cost and the time. So I asked for support for this because I think it does provide a mechanism that will reduce cost and make Chapter 9 filing, when it's necessary, much more effective and a lot lower cost. The last thing I'll say is I had a lot of questions from a lot of the people I've spoken with as we've gone through this process that says, why do we need to be concerned because we don't have that many Chapter 9 filings? And there's a very simple answer to that. 40 states in the union have off-ramps to prevent or limit a Chapter 9 filing. Cost is prohibitive for a lot of municipalities that would file if there wasn't a cost hurdle in terms of administrative and how do we deal with it. And the last thing is that if you have a process such as this, you're going to be able to address bond defaults and other things that are going to be potentially more serious sooner rather than later and potentially avoid a Chapter 9 emergency filing.
Okay.
Thank you.
In support of the bill, very briefly.
Madam Chair, members, Christy Baumer representing the California Professional Firefighters. As the committee is aware, we have supported similar measures over the last several years, predominantly because our affected employees that work for these stressed municipalities have a vested interest in avoiding a Chapter 9 filing, and we think that the process outlined in